What happens when a boutique CEO grabs a mop and discovers the ugliest truth hiding behind the prettiest clothes? Elliot Parker stood just inside the back entrance of his own boutique in Charleston, South Carolina, tugging at the collar of the khaki maintenance uniform. It was a tight fit. The name tag read Eli. His dark beard was trimmed shorter than usual, and the thick-rimmed glasses helped hide his face. No one at the store had ever met him. He'd bought the company 8 years ago from a mother-daughter duo who started it out of their garage. Now there were 18 locations across the Southeast, and this one had started slipping. 3 customer complaints in 2 weeks. One said a supervisor rolled her eyes when asked for a different size. Another said she overheard staff making fun of someone's outfit after they walked out. And last week, a longtime shopper claimed she was quietly discouraged from returning. That line stuck with him. "Let's see what discouragement looks like," Elliot muttered under his breath, stepping into the boutique. It was sleek and modern, white walls, gold racks, soft indie music playing overhead. But the mood felt off. No one greeted him. A tall woman behind the counter scrolled through her phone. A young sales associate, maybe 19, folded sweaters at lightning speed while glancing nervously toward the back. Elliot was told to shadow the floor team as a new janitorial trainee. The store manager, Lindsay, introduced herself quickly that morning and hadn't spoken to him since. She seemed distracted, annoyed he was even assigned there. He grabbed a broom and started near the front display. "Hey, Eli," the young associate whispered, ducking around a rack to straighten a row of dresses. "You knew?" "Yeah. Just started today. First store they put me in." She gave him a warm smile. "I'm Shelby. If you need help, honestly, just ask me. Lindsay and Tasha won't explain anything." "Appreciate it," Elliot said. "Who's Tasha?" "Supervisor. She's the one with the loud laugh. You'll hear her before you see her." He didn't wait long. Around noon, Tasha strolled onto the floor from the back, sipping iced coffee. She wore heels that clicked like a metronome. Her voice cut through the music. "I swear, if I see that lady with the feather hat again," she said, laughing. "She came in last week looking like a peacock exploded. And she always wants me to check the back." "For what? A sense of style?" Another associate chuckled nervously, but Shelby froze. Elliot watched her hands tighten around a blouse she was holding. Tasha kept going. "We get the same weirdos every week. That one woman who smells like lavender detergent and talks to herself? I told Lindsay we should have a no regulars policy." Elliot nearly dropped the broom. He glanced at Shelby. Her eyes were wide, lips pressed together. She whispered, "That lady's name is Mrs. Dalton. She's been shopping here since store one. She lost her husband last year. This place is her safe space." Elliot's stomach twisted. This was worse than the reports. By mid-afternoon, he was sweeping by the dressing rooms when he heard it again. "She's back," Tasha said sharply, not knowing he was nearby. "That Mrs. Dalton woman. I told her last week we didn't have her size. I lied. Maybe she'll stop coming if we keep not having it." Elliot stepped into the hallway. Tasha turned, startled. "Oh, you scared me." He forced a tired smile. "Sorry. Didn't know anyone was in here." She gave him a quick scan, then dismissed him. "No worries. Just venting. Some customers don't know when to leave a place behind." It took everything in Elliot not to say something right then. The next morning, Shelby found him just before opening. "I saw you listening yesterday," she said, voice low. "I'm sorry if that made you uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do." "Mrs. Dalton's in again today." Elliot nodded. "Where is she?" "She's over by accessories." "Tasha's avoiding her." He looked across the store and spotted an older woman with silver hair, gently touching a scarf. She looked unsure, like she wasn't sure she belonged. Elliot dropped the broom and walked over. "Hi there," he said. She looked up, surprised. "Hello. Need help finding something?" "I was looking for the green wrap they had last month. I think they said it was sold out." He checked the rack behind her. It was there. "Like this one." Her face lit up. "That's it." He smiled. "Looks like it's waiting just for you." She beamed and quietly said, "Thank you." I know I'm not your usual customer, but this place, it reminds me of my daughter. She used to shop here. Before she moved. Elliot swallowed hard. You're always welcome here. Always. As he helped her carry items to the fitting room, he felt his jaw clench. Tasha had lied to this woman. Mocked her. Tried to push her away. He wasn't just sweeping floors anymore. Tomorrow, he was going to watch Tasha closely, and he wasn't going to stay silent much longer. Elliot arrived before sunrise the next day. He parked down the street, pulled the same janitorial uniform over his t-shirt, and walked the last block in the cool morning quiet. The street was empty, save for the clatter of delivery trucks and the hum of a bakery prepping for the day. He unlocked the side door with the temporary key Lindsay had handed him on day one without a second glance and stepped into the still dark boutique. He didn't bother sweeping right away. Instead, he headed to the small break room tucked behind the dressing area. It held a dented microwave, a chipped coffee maker, and a corkboard with faded flyers about employee discounts and outdated sales goals. He opened the mini fridge and saw 2 yogurt cups, an open can of soda, and a sticky note taped to a lunch bag that read, "Do not touch." Shelby's name was written in careful, slanted letters on it. He sat at the tiny table, pulled out a notebook from his coat pocket, and opened to a blank page. He started a list. Tasha intentionally lied to a customer about product availability, repeatedly mocked specific shoppers, encouraged exclusion, created fear-based environment for junior staff. Lindsay, absent from floor, no visible leadership. Shelby, respectful, observant, empathetic. The front door's chime rang faintly through the walls. Opening time. Elliot stuffed the notebook away and walked out just as the lights flicked on. Shelby was already straightening tags near the entrance, her hair pulled into a messy bun, earbuds still in. She noticed him and gave a short nod. "Morning," she said, pulling one earbud out. "They didn't tell me you were on the schedule again. I offered to pick up a few extra hours," he said. "I don't mind early shifts. You will once you meet inventory day," she muttered, then added, "Lindsay's not in yet. Tasha's acting manager until 10. He was about to ask more when Tasha's voice echoed from the back hallway. "Shelby, let's go. Front mannequins are still in last week's outfits. And someone left the cash drawer open last night, so guess who's doing a report before breakfast?" Shelby rolled her eyes subtly, then turned to Elliot. "Don't leave the broom out of your sight. She'll blame you for anything not nailed down." Elliot nodded and moved toward the stockroom. He wanted a better sense of the operation behind the scenes. Inside, the air was warmer, heavy with the scent of cardboard and fabric sizing. There were half-unpacked boxes stacked in no particular order, size tags scattered across the floor. A clipboard lay abandoned on a folding table. A young man walked in from the back door carrying a stack of hangers. He looked barely 20, wearing a faded polo and sneakers that had seen better days. "You Eli, right?" he asked, adjusting the hangers under one arm. "Yeah. You on stock?" "More like everything. I'm Jalen. I do restock, shipping returns, prep the new lines, sometimes cover register when they're short." "When do you clock out?" "Supposed to be 5. Usually closer to 7. Depends on if Tasha's still checking something in the back." Elliot studied the kid. His voice was even, but his eyes looked tired. "You ever get a full lunch?" Jalen gave a short laugh. "I bring snacks. If I step outside, someone radios me back. Last week I ate jerky behind a mannequin." Elliot didn't respond. He just nodded and helped Jalen lift a box marked "Spring Line Hold." Back on the floor, the boutique was filling up. A mother and daughter walked in, chatting softly. Another woman browsed the handbags. Shelby moved smoothly between them, offering help without hovering. Tasha strolled out at 9:30, sipping from a fresh coffee. She leaned casually against the counter, scrolling through her phone again. A customer approached her. "Excuse me, do you have this sweater in a medium?" Tasha didn't look up. "If it's not out, we don't have it." The woman hesitated. "Could someone check the back?" Tasha finally glanced at her, eyes flat. We've already done our pulls for the week. We're tight on stock. The woman nodded slowly and walked away. Elliot stepped behind a nearby display and pulled out his phone. Quietly, he typed a message to his assistant outside the store. Pull inventory data for this location. Confirm real-time stock levels on spring sweaters. Medium seafoam. He slid the phone back into his pocket and walked toward the fitting area. Shelby was folding jeans on a low shelf. That woman who just asked Tasha for a sweater, Elliot said, voice low. Ever seen her before? She's local, Shelby replied. Comes in once a month. Never complains, always buys something. She left without trying anything on. Shelby didn't respond, but her expression said enough. At 10:15, Lindsay finally arrived. Her hair was perfectly styled, scarf tucked just so, but her expression was distant. She barely glanced toward her team as she walked in, holding a tablet. Tasha immediately began updating her, loudly enough for customers to hear. Had to reopen the register report. Drawer was off again. And I had to handle like 4 restock questions. Nobody else was helping. Elliot watched Lindsay nod without question. Shelby walked past him with a stack of returns. She whispered, that report's from last week. She just copies the numbers. 20 minutes later, Elliot's assistant sent the inventory data. Elliot stepped outside, pretending to take a break. The text read, in stock, seafoam sweater, medium, 5 units, no holds, no transfers pending. He walked back in, straight to the stockroom. Jalen was zipping a box closed. Got any seafoam mediums in sweaters? Yeah, top shelf, left side. Just restocked them this morning. Elliot grabbed one and walked it straight to the front of the store. The customer wasn't there anymore. He handed it to Shelby without a word. She looked at the tag, then back at him. You found it. I didn't even have to look hard. Shelby held the sweater for a second, then folded it slowly. You're not just a janitor, are you? Elliot met her eyes. Not exactly. Before he could say more, Tasha's voice cut across the store again. Shelby, you're on register. And tell Jalen to unpack the rest of the flats unless he's hiding again. That's the 3rd time she said that about him, Shelby murmured. Elliot's jaw tightened. He walked straight to the back, found Jalen lifting a stack of boxes, and said, Drop those. Jalen blinked. What? Elliot pulled the name tag from his chest and let it drop. Don't worry, you're not in trouble. But she sure as hell is. By noon, Elliot had called a private meeting in the office. Lindsay, Tasha, Shelby, and Jalen were all there. He stood at the head of the room, no longer hiding behind a uniform. My name is Elliot Parker, he said. I own this company. Tasha paled. Lindsay froze. For the past 3 days, I've been working this store undercover. What I saw disturbed me. He turned to Tasha. You lied to loyal customers. You mocked them behind their backs. You created an atmosphere of exclusion and disrespect that violates every standard this company was built on. You're done here. Effective immediately. Tasha opened her mouth, but he held up a hand. There's no conversation. You've had chances. You chose cruelty. He turned to Lindsay. I expected leadership from a store manager. What I saw was absence. You let someone else run your floor while you stayed in the back. That ends today. You'll step down from this location effective this week. You can apply for a position elsewhere, but it's conditional. Lindsay nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the floor. Elliot looked at Shelby and Jalen last. What you've endured shouldn't have been normalized. You've both shown heart, integrity, and endurance under pressure. That won't go unnoticed. He paused. Starting next week, this store gets a new manager. Orders will be reviewed. Scheduling will be restructured. And every employee will meet with me directly before we finalize the leadership team. He stepped back. This store needed a reset. Today, it gets one. No one spoke. And then Shelby whispered, thank you. Elliot nodded, his voice quiet now. Thank you for not giving up before we got here. The store's back office emptied in silence. Tasha left first, lips pressed tight, grabbing her bag from the coat rack without a word. Lindsay trailed behind her, slower, holding the tablet against her chest like a shield. Shelby stood near the door, unsure whether to follow or stay. Jalen lingered in the hallway, eyes darting between the others, like he was bracing for something to go wrong at any second. Elliot stayed seated at the desk, elbows on the edge, gaze fixed on the schedule posted beside the computer. It was filled with crossed-out shifts and last-minute changes scribbled in pen. "Shelby," he said without looking up. "Can you stay a minute?" She stepped back inside. "Of course." He motioned to the chair across from him. She sat, clasping her hands tightly in her lap. "You've been holding this place together," he said. "I doubt they ever told you that." She gave a small shrug. "I figured it wasn't my place to say anything. Not anymore." He stood and peeled the schedule off the wall. "How many people actually work here right now? Including me and Jalen?" "5. We're supposed to have 8. One girl quit 2 weeks ago, said she couldn't take it anymore. Another just stopped showing up. Did anyone ever ask why? They blamed it on Gen Z work ethic." Shelby rolled her eyes. "But we all knew it was the way Tasha talked to people." Elliot folded the paper and slid it into his pocket. "You're off the rest of the day. And tomorrow. I'll be here the whole time. You've done enough." She blinked. "You sure? You've earned a breather. Go breathe." Shelby stood slowly, still unsure. "Okay. I guess I'll see you Monday." He nodded. "We'll be rewriting a lot by then." Half an hour later, Elliot walked the floor alone. The boutique was quiet for mid-afternoon, just 2 customers browsing near the denim wall. Jalen was restocking folded tees on the central table. His shoulders were still hunched, like he hadn't quite processed the morning. "Jalen," Elliot said, keeping his tone casual, "can you meet me in the back when you're done there?" The kid gave a wary nod but followed within minutes. They sat in the break room, both holding paper cups of coffee. The silence stretched until Elliot finally said, "You've been running triple duty for months." "I saw it the second day." Jalen stared at the cup in his hands. "I just didn't want to lose the job." "You shouldn't have had to worry about that." "I didn't think anyone higher up cared," he said, voice flat. "You buy a company, you see numbers, not stock guys." "I didn't want to be one of those owners," Elliot said. "But I clearly became one." Jalen glanced at him. "Why'd you even come in like this? You could have just sent a new manager. You ever try to fix a house from a mile away?" Jalen cracked a small, tired smile. "Fair." Elliot leaned back. "Here's what's happening. You're getting a temporary bump, extra pay, starting this week. I'll be sending in a regional rep to shadow operations and help stabilize scheduling. You're not doing this alone anymore." Jalen didn't speak right away. When he did, his voice was quiet. "Thanks. I mean it." A knock on the door interrupted them. A woman with a clipboard poked her head in. "Sorry, I'm from District Logistics. Got pulled in for a surprise audit and was told to check stock flow." Elliot stood. "Perfect timing. You'll want to talk to Jalen. He's the reason anything's still on the shelves." By late afternoon, Elliot was on the floor again, this time standing behind the counter. He had pulled open the system dashboard and was comparing real-time sales logs against the previous month. The numbers weren't catastrophic, but they showed a slow, steady decline, nothing dramatic enough to make headlines, but just enough to eat away at margins over time. One of the customers approached the register holding a blouse and a pair of earrings. She smiled politely as she set them down. "Did you find everything okay?" Elliot asked. She nodded. "Yes, thank you. It's nicer in here today." That caught him off guard. "How so?" She hesitated, then glanced around to make sure no one else was listening. "Usually there's a lot of tension. Like I'm walking into a private club I wasn't invited to." He raised an eyebrow. "That obvious? I've been shopping here for years. It's not the clothes. It's the energy." He rang up her items, bagged them carefully, and handed her the receipt. "Thank you for saying that," he said. "Things are changing here." "I hope so," she replied. "It used to feel like a place I could breathe." After she left, Elliot stepped into the stockroom and called his operations team. "I need a full audit of all locations," he said. "Start with staff turnover. Then compare store performance against management tenure. I want to know where the rot is." He hung up and returned to the break room. Lindsay was waiting, seated stiffly at the table. She hadn't said much since the meeting that morning. Her eyes were red around the edges. "I didn't expect to be called back in," she said. "You're not in trouble," Elliot replied. "But we need to talk." She looked down at her hands. "I've been here for years. I thought I was doing okay." "You kept the lights on, but that's not enough," Elliot said. "You let someone else set the tone. That tone cost us customers and good people." She nodded slowly. "I didn't know how to stop her." "You didn't try." Lindsay didn't argue. She just folded her hands tighter. "I'm offering you a new role," Elliot continued. "Inventory coordinator. You'll work from home, manage incoming stock flow across all stores. It's a demotion, yes, but it's a clean slate. You take it or you walk away." She looked up. "I'll take it." "Good. Someone from HR will call you tonight. We'll transition you out of the store by Friday." She stood. "Thank you for not firing me." "I almost did," Elliot said. "Don't make me regret it." That evening, the store closed on time for the first time all week. Elliot stayed behind, walking the floor in silence, inspecting the racks, the lighting, the music volume. Everything looked the same as it always had, but it felt different. Shelby was gone for the day. Jalen had clocked out early, and the place exhaled a kind of relief it hadn't in weeks. Elliot locked the front door and sat at the register, pulling out his notebook again. He flipped to the second page. He wrote, "Culture begins on the floor. Respect, not aesthetics. Invisible labor is the backbone. If one person poisons the air, everyone breathes it. Change is not policy. It's presence." He closed the notebook and stood. Tomorrow, he'd bring in someone from corporate HR to start interviews. They'd begin posting for 2 open positions. Shelby would be offered a training track. Jalen's hours would be capped to avoid burnout. And Elliot would be in the store every other week until the new manager proved steady. He turned off the lights, one switch at a time. This boutique wouldn't run on fear anymore. The following Monday, Elliot arrived at the boutique just before opening, holding 2 coffees and a folded printout of the new operations chart. The sun had barely cleared the rooftops, casting long shadows down King Street. Inside, the boutique was quiet, the soft click of hangers and faint rustle of tissue paper filling the space. Shelby stood near the window display, rearranging scarves onto a copper rack. She wore a slate gray cardigan and flat shoes, her hair pulled back neatly. She looked up when he walked in. "I didn't know you were coming in today," she said, wiping her hands on a towel tucked into her apron. "I wanted to talk to you before the day starts." He handed her one of the coffees. "Oat milk, no sugar. I guess based on the fridge." She raised an eyebrow. "You've been digging through our fridge?" "Just enough to notice who labels their food," he said. She sat on the edge of the customer seating bench near the entrance and took a tentative sip. "All right, what's the conversation?" Elliot pulled out the printout and set it beside her. "You've been moved to full-time floor lead. You'll report directly to the new interim manager, but you'll be responsible for training, onboarding, and customer experience. We're calling it a 6-week mentorship track." Shelby stared at the paper for a moment, then looked at him, uncertain. "I've never managed anyone before." "I'm not asking you to manage. I'm asking you to lead. There's a difference." She folded the paper neatly. "All right, I'll do it. Starting today, you set the tone out here. If something doesn't feel right, you bring it to me or the manager. No filtering. Deal?" Before the conversation could go further, the front door opened and a woman in her 40s stepped in. She wore a navy blazer and carried a laptop bag over one shoulder. Her expression was calm, observant. She scanned the room once, then nodded toward them. "That's Mara," Elliot said quietly. "She's your interim store manager. Comes from our Atlanta flagship team. She's not here to make friends, but she listens." Shelby stood and approached her. "Good morning. I'm Shelby." Mara shook her hand. "Glad to meet you." I've heard a lot about this location the past week. Let's get things cleaned up. By noon, the boutique was operating under a rhythm that felt foreign but steady. Mara had pulled everyone aside for one-on-one check-ins, including the part-timers who usually floated between shifts unnoticed. She didn't take notes on a tablet. She listened and asked questions that cut straight through the surface. In the back, Jalen was updating an inventory list when Elliot stepped in holding a tablet. "Got a second?" Elliot asked. Jalen set down his scanner and leaned against the shelf. "I reviewed your hours from the past month. You averaged over 50 a week. That's not sustainable." "I know," Jalen said, "but nobody else was going to do it. That's not your burden anymore. We've approved hiring for 2 more part-time stock assistants. Until they're trained, we're shifting restock to alternate days instead of daily." Jalen exhaled slowly. "That'll help. One more thing." Elliot tapped the tablet. "You're being enrolled in our logistics training program. You'll do coursework online twice a week on the clock. No pressure to commit long-term, but I want you to see what's possible." Jalen looked at him for a long moment. "You're serious?" "I don't say anything I can't back up." Jalen nodded. "Okay, I'll do it." By mid-afternoon, the boutique had settled into a calm that felt earned. The music was lower. The conversations on the floor were purposeful. Customers browsed without glancing over their shoulders. Even the lighting felt warmer, or maybe it was just the absence of tension. Elliot stayed out of the way, walking the perimeter, observing. He stepped near the denim wall and started folding a few shirts that had been left unfolded. It was muscle memory by now. A middle-aged woman entered wearing a lavender shawl and soft walking shoes. She paused near the display table, scanning for something. Shelby was nearby and noticed immediately. "Hi, Mrs. Dalton," she said, stepping forward. "It's good to see you." The woman smiled gently. "Thank you, dear. I wasn't sure if I should come back." "You should. Always." Mrs. Dalton's eyes flicked toward Elliot, then back to Shelby. "That young man helped me the other day. The one who found the green wrap." Shelby glanced at Elliot. "He's here today." Mrs. Dalton stepped closer. "I know it sounds silly, but that small kindness meant more than you know. It's been a hard year, and this place used to feel like a comfort." Elliot walked over. "It still can be. We're making sure of it." She looked at him with quiet recognition. "You're not who I thought you were. I get that a lot." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded receipt. "I meant to exchange this last week. I wasn't sure if I could." Shelby took it. "Absolutely. Let's find you something you love." As the two of them walked toward the accessories wall, Elliot stepped back. He didn't need to be part of the moment. It was already happening without him. Later that evening, after close, the team gathered in the back office. Mara stood by the whiteboard, reviewing the next week's schedule. Shelby leaned against the filing cabinet, arms crossed but relaxed. Jalen sat at the folding table, still in his stock apron, sipping water. Elliot stood near the door, hands in his pockets. "We're not where we need to be yet," Mara said. "But the foundation is here. We'll stabilize the store and then we'll build." She looked around the room. "Any questions before we wrap?" Jalen raised a hand slightly. "Are we still doing check-ins next week?" "Yes," Mara said. "Every week. You'll never be left in the dark again." Shelby looked at Elliot. "Are you still doing surprise visits?" "No more surprises," he said. "But I'll be around." Quietly, the room began to empty. Jalen waved on his way out. Mara gathered her notes and walked toward the front. Shelby lingered behind, folding the last of the day's paperwork. Elliot stepped beside her. "You handled today like you'd been doing it for years. I didn't expect it to feel this different so fast." "It's not fast. It's overdue." She looked at him. "What happens to the other stores?" "We audit them. We listen. We act. But this was the first step." Shelby nodded, then reached for her coat. As they turned off the lights and walked out, the boutique stood still behind them, quiet, clean, and ready for morning. No more whispers behind the counter. No more customers walking out for the wrong reasons. No more silence from leadership. From here on out, Every voice would count. Every shift would matter. And every person who walked through the door, staff or customer, would know exactly where they stood.